ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya, Hari Om.
Om Tat Sat.
So, we are still on the first chapter, the Agama Prakaranam. We had completed Karika number 24 and we are on Karika number 25. So, please unmute yourself and we will chant. Karika number 25. Yunjita pranave chetaha
Yunjita pranava chetaha
pranavo brahma nirbhayam
प्रणवो ब्रह्मनिर्भयम्
प्रणवे नित्ययुक्तस्य
प्रणवे नित्ययुक्तस्य
न भयं विद्यते क्वचित्
अभयं विद्यते क्वचित्
Okay. So, Yunjita Pranave Cheta. Right. So, Yunjita means what?
The union.
The union, the equation. So, here Yunjita has to be taken as equation. So, Yunjita Pranave Chetaha, you are equating Pranavaha, the Omkara, with what? We know, with the Atma. Right? The four matras with the four padas, we are to equate. And then you have to practice Nididhyasana. Right? What is the idea of this practice? That all the ideas here, all the terms, Prathama, Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturpadaha, that's Prathama Padaha, Dvitiya Padaha, Tritiya Padaha, Prathama Matra, Omkara, Ukara, Makara, all these terms, one should be meditate upon so much that they are firmly embedded in our mind. And when you say firmly embedded, the association should be almost simultaneous, should be automatic. The moment we say Prathama Pada, what should come into our minds? What is Prathama Pada?
Vishwa.
Vishwa. So the moment you say Prathama Pada, you should have the visualization of the Samashti, the gross Samashti, Sthula Samashti universe, right? Of the Sthula Samashti you should have immediately into your mind. Unless the moment you say Vishwa, Prathamapada, the entire Sthula Samashti, the gross universe, is immediately visualized. Your Nididhyasanam is not complete. That connection should be subconsciously automatic. Right? And therefore, Nididhyasanam is being used to ensure that the corresponding entity is automatically triggered in your mind. Right? So, Jagat Prapancha, Swapna Prapancha, Karana Prapancha, these will automatically be triggered as you meditate. And when you are meditating upon Turiam, remember then what should be triggered is that the three Prapanchas are there, but they are mithya. They are not substantial. This trigger has to come. And therefore, by the time I look at the Prathama Pada, the Dvitiya Pada, Tritiya Pada, by the time I come to Turiam, in my mind, the three worlds should be seen as very, very much mithya. That none of the worlds have any substance. And when my mind can assimilate this, that is the proper Nididhyasana. So when I come from Sthula Shariram to Sukshma Shariram, what should happen? The Sthula Shariram should become mithya. Similarly, when I move from Sthula Prapancha, Virat, to Sukshma Prapancha, Hiranyagarbha. Again, I will request, please do not keep your mics open because they are disturbing the recordings. Okay, so when I come from the gross universe to the subtle universe, from Virat to Hiranyagarbha, Virat should become Mithya. When I come from Hiranyagarbha to Antaryami, Hiranyagarbha must become Mithya. And so on, right? So when I come from Akara to Ukara, Akara should have become Mithya. When I come from Ukara to Makara, Makara should have become Mithya. And when I come through Akara, Ukara, Makara, and then to the silence, the three worlds and the three karas, the three Akara, Ukara, Makara, all three have to disappear. And I should be aware only of that silence, of that Turiam. And furthermore, I should be aware that that Turiam is none other than I myself. Okay. Now here, remember, when you start this portion, the Nidhi Dhyasanam portion, you would have finished Mananam, right? In Shravanam, you studied everything. In Mananam, you did your, meditation upon the logic of it. And you have no more doubts left. So in Nidhi Dhyasanam, the Acharya has no role to play. The Acharya's role is there in Shravanam, the maximum, in Mananam to a large extent, where you are not able to resolve the issues with your own intellect. But beyond that, once your doubts have gone, once your samshaya rahita jnanam is there, knowledge without doubts, doubtless knowledge, clarity is there, then the Acharya's role ends. Therefore, the Nididhyasanam has to be done by student alone, by the Shishya alone. There is no role for the Acharya or the teacher. So, Pranava, Brahma, Nirbhayam. These are the words here in the mantra. What does it mean? Omkara is nothing but Nirbhayam, the fearless, Nirgunam, Brahma. Now, if you take the Akara, Ukara, and Makara to represent Brahman, it is Saguna Brahman. Whereas if you take the Amatra, the Turiam, the silence, it corresponds to Nirguna Brahman. Therefore, when you say Om, you are including Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. Right? How? Om. That sound part is Saguna Brahman. The silence which follows is Nirguna Brahman. And that is why when we chant also, we ensure that at the end of the chanting, there is a silence. And then only you begin the next Om. So the sound part of Omkara is what? Saguna Brahman, Virat, Hiranyagarbha, Antaryami. The silence part is Nirguna Brahman. And once you have learned to see this, then Pranave Nitya Yuktasya, for the person who is constantly doing Nididhyasanam upon Omkara, what does he know? He knows without any doubt that I am Turyam Brahma. What is the phalam, the fruit of that knowledge? Na bhayam vidyate kvachit. I am not afraid of anything at any time, of anyone. There is nobody else to be afraid of because I am the only one. I am not afraid of mortality because I am immortal. But I should also know that the tools which I use for gaining this knowledge, the sthula, sukshma sharirams are mortal. The karna shariram is subject to negation. Sthula shariram is subject to negation. Sukshma shariram is subject to negation. But all are mortal. Only I, the Turyam Brahman, am free from mortality. Am free from fear. Therefore, this Maandukya Upanishad, for it to penetrate into each cell of your body, so to say, it requires constant nididhyasana all the time. There is no other way. And that is why so many karikas are there. So remember that Maandukya Upanishad we have completed with the 12 mantras. But Gaudapada knows it is not sufficient. And therefore, all these karikas are there for us to meditate upon, to do nididhyasana. So now we look at the next karika, karika number 26. We will chant. Pranavo hyaparam brahma.
Pranavo
प्रणवो ह्यपरं ब्रह्म
Pranavascha param smritaha.
Pranavascha
प्रणवश्च परं स्मृतः
Apurva nantaro bahyah.
Apurvo
अपूर्वोऽनन्तरः बाह्यः
Anapparah pranavo vyayah.
Anapara
अनप्रणवो
Again, another very, very beautiful Nididhyasana sloka on Omkara. So this Karika talks about what is the utility of doing this Nididhyasana, right? And how does this understanding come about? So Pranavo hi aparam Brahma. So this we said. What does it mean? Pranavo hi aparam Brahma.
Pranava is the Om is the Saguna.
Yes, aparam means Saguna. Okay, not the ultimate. So Saguna Brahma. Pranavo hi aparam Brahma means Pranava is the Omkara is the Saguna Brahman. At the same time, he says Pranavascha Param Smataha. Pranava is also the Param Brahma. Is Aparam Brahma as well as Param Brahma. So that Omkara Pranavaha is the Saguna Brahma and is also the Nirguna Brahma. How we saw in the last Karika. The three matras, Akara, Ukara, Makara, they constitute the Aparam Brahma, the Saguna Brahman. And the Nirguna Brahman is constituted by the silence, the Amatra. So the question will come, how can the same Omkara represent both Sagunam and Nirgunam Brahma? What is the answer?
The Saguna includes Nirguna. Without Nirguna, there is no Saguna.
Okay, any other answer?
For an Agnyani or a beginner, it is easier to understand Saguna first.
Well, it's easier to think of it this way, that the matras are the attributes, right? There is Nirgunam Brahman, which is the core, which is the silence, the Amatra, and onto that, Paramarthika Satyam, the Nirguna Brahman. What do? We superimpose Uma, as also we superimpose Virat, Hiranyagarbha, Ishvara. So there is a Paramarthika Brahman, which is Nirguna Brahman, and there is a Vyavaharika Brahman, which is Saguna Brahman. There is no clash, conflict in Paramarthika existing with a Vyavaharika because they are different levels of reality. Okay. Then, what is this? What is special about this fourth pada, the Nirguna Brahman, the Turyam? So he says, Abhahyaha Anantaraha. Antara means inside. Anantara means not inside. Bahya means outside. Abahya means not outside. So this Amatra, it has no insides and no outsides. Okay. How do we understand? You take, let us say, a necklace. Is it inside the gold or outside the gold?
It is gold.
There is no inside and outside, right? So the necklace, you can say, is neither inside or outside, which is what he is saying. Anantara abhaya. That Saguna Brahman, which is equal to the necklace, is neither outside nor inside the Nirguna Brahman, which is equal to the gold. Why? Because it is only name and form. Nama Rupa alone. The Vastu is gold alone. So again, the idea is being reiterated that there is no substance called the universe. There is only consciousness. Then, what is meant by Prakriti or universe? It is just a word that we use, a word on the tip of our tongue, right? So he says, Apurvo Anaparaha Pranavaha Avyayaha. All adjectives which you should remember. Omkara, which is the Amatra Rupa Pranavaha. The Pranavaha, the Omkara in the form of the silence, Amatra. Apurvaha has nothing before it. Apurvaha simply means nothing before it, which you have to interpret as has no karanam, right? Because karanam comes before the karyam. And by the same logic, anaparaha, nothing after it. So by that same logic, there is no product also. So this Omkara Nirguna Brahman, which is Amatra Rupa Pranavaha, which is the Turyam Brahman, has no Karanam, has no Karyam, is Karana Karya Vilakshana. Why? Because Brahman has no Karanam, and actually speaking, though we say that everything else is a product, Anaparaha, Brahman has no product also. There is no other entity belonging to the same species as Brahman, in the same reality. Paramarthika Satyam is only one. When you talk about the world, you are talking about Vyavaharika Satyam, a different, a lower level of reality. And the next adjective is Avyayaha. Avyayaha means without any change, not subject to any change. So in terms of our Tattvabodha, what is the word you would use? What are the two words you would use to describe Avyayaha?
Nirvikara.
Nirvikara.
Nirvikaram you can say, or you can say Shadvikara Rahitam.
Rahitam.
Because Shadvikara is the what we saw in Tattvabodha. So Avyaya here means Shadvikara Rahitam. And therefore this Nirguna Brahman, from whom the entire universe, including time and space, begins. It is Karya Karana Vilakshana. There is no cause, there is no effect. Now we look at the next Karika, Karika number 27. Sarvasya Pranavo Hyadihi
Sarvasya
प्रणवो याति
Madhyamantastatthaiva cha
Madhyamantasthaiva
तथैव च
Evam hi pranamam gyatva
evam
प्रणवं ज्ञात्वा
Vyashnute tadanantaram
Vyashnute
व्यश्नुते
Tadantaram
तदनन्तरम्
Vyashnute tadanantaram.
Vyashnute Tadanantaram.
अनन्तरम्
So it is in the necklace, it is the gold which is the only substance. In fact, the very existence of all the ornaments, they are dependent upon the gold. Because gold is that which lends existence. And therefore, Turyam Brahma, in the same manner, exists and pervades all the three worlds, Thula, Sukshma, and Karan Prapanchas. So it pervades the beginning, the middle, and the end of all creation. In fact, the very existence of Srishti, the creation, is dependent, is borrowed from Turyam. Turyam is the lender of existence. So Sarvasya Pranavaha Hyadihi Madhyam Antha Tathaiva cha. So here the word pranava has to be taken as amatra rupa pranava. That omkara in the form of the silence. And sarvasya hi adihi. Right? Pranava is the first one. This amatra rupa omkara. What is it? Sarvasya hi adihi. It is the beginning of everything. Sarvasya hi madhyam. It is in the middle of everything. And sarvasya hi antas tathaivacha. It is in the end of everything also. Which literally means it pervades everything. It is the essence, the content, so to speak, of the entire universe, including space and time. It's a very important idea which we have to digest. Because we think the universe is in space. It is not. In fact, even science admits that space expands. As the universe is expanding, the space is expanding. It is not that the universe is expanding into space which is already there. The word expansion of universe means the expansion of space. Right? And to those who are interested, you would know that is the reason why that there is a limitation on the maximum speed of an object. What is that? Anybody know? The maximum speed an object can achieve is what?
Speed of light.
Speed of light. But that is not applicable to space. The expansion of space is faster than the speed of light. Why? Because Einstein's constraint is that nothing can exceed the speed of light in space. Right? If you are in space, the speed of light is a constraint. But it doesn't apply to space itself. And therefore, space is expanding at a faster than speed of light. All very, very beautiful ideas which should be there for every Vedantic, because cosmology is matter of great interest to all Vedantics. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So here, sarvasya adihi, sarvasya madhyam, sarvasya antacha. This particular pranavaha, thuriam, which is in the form of amatra omkara, that is the very content of everything, including space and time. That is why we say including space and time. And evam hi pranavam gyatva, having understood that omkara in this manner, which manner? That there is a saguna omkara consisting of akara, ukara, makara, and there is a nirguna omkara which we call amatra. What should we do? Vyashnute tad anantaram. We have to own up that amatra, that thuriam as ourselves. Right? So when we say that, in that thuriam, remember that there is no experience at all. There is only blankness. But that blankness is not nothingness. As advanced Vedantics, we should know that the blankness you experience, let us say during Sushupti Avastha or during Samadhi, that is not nothingness. Why? Because you have to ask yourself, who is it that experiences the blankness? And you have only one answer, I, the Turiam. And therefore, that witness of that blankness, as well as of the non-blankness, that witness, I am Turiam. And when one owns up that, when one says, I am Turiam, that is basically merging into Turiam. What the Shastra says, becoming Turiam, or merging into Turiam, or merging into Brahman, has only one meaning. The understanding, the claiming that I am Brahman is represented by things like merging into Brahman, becoming Brahman, achieving Brahman. All these phrases mean that I have claimed myself as Brahman. Okay. Then Karika number 28. Pranavam Hishwaram Vidyat
Pranavam Hishwaram Vidya
ईश्वरं विद्या
Sarvasya Hridi Samsthitam
Sarvasya
हृदि संस्थितम्
सर्वव्यापिनम् ओंकारम्
सर्वव्यापिनोऽहम्
मत्वा धीरो न शोचति.
मत्वा
धीरो न शोचति
So there is the Vachyartha of Omkara, which is the three matras, the sound. And there is the Lakshyartha of Omkara, which is the silence, the amatra. So Pranavam He Ishwaram Vidyat. That long E has to be split into short E plus Ishwaram. Pranavam He Ishwaram Vidyat. Understand that Pranava is Omkara. Vidyat, you should know. And what kind of Omkara or what kind of Ishvara? Understand that Pranava itself is Ishvara. Pranavam He Ishwaram Vidyat. You should know that Pranava, the Omkara, is Ishvara, the Paramatma. And what sort of Ishvara? Sarvasya Hridi Samsthitam. That Ishvara who is the very content of the hearts and minds of all people. So here remember, when we say Ishvara is the content of your heart or your mind, remember we are talking about the Sakshi, who is there as who is recognizable as Brahman. That Brahman which is all pervading, that Brahman, that we can recognize that Brahman only in our own minds as the consciousness principle. And that consciousness principle available in your heart, in your mind, available meaning recognizable, that is called Sakshi. And that Sakshi is the one we say witnesses the presence and absence of all thoughts. And therefore only Sarva Vyapinam, all pervading. All pervading means what? That Sakshi which is in my mind is actually Brahman. And that Brahman is there in everybody's mind. And therefore all pervading. And Sarva Vyapinam Omkaram Matva. Know that Omkara as that all pervading Sakshi, the consciousness principle. And having known, what should happen? Dhiraha na shochati. So Dhiraha doesn't mean brave person here. Dhiraha means the wise person, the intelligent person, the discriminative person who has understood that Om is the Turya Chaitanya. Dhiraha na shochati. He has no grief in his life. Samsara has gone away. Right? And Shankara gives the reason. He says, why does he not grieve? Because there is no nimittam. Shoka nimittam anupapattihi, he says. This particular person who has understood that he is Turi Chaitanyam, for him there is no cause of grief at all. There is no entity which can cause him grief. Why? Because what causes grief? Raga, Dvesha, Kama, Krodha. Right? And for him, all these things, which we incidentally call Dushta Chatushtayam, this Raga, Dvesha, Kama, Krodha, is the cause for samsara. And it is known as Dushta Chatushtayam, the four bad things. Just like we have Sadhana Chatushtayam. Right? So these four Dushta Chatushtayam, they reside where? They reside in the Anatma. And he is what? He is Tula Chaitanyam, the Atma. Therefore, in him there is no cause for the grief. And therefore, Dhiraha na shochati. He is Jivan Muktaha. Now we look at the 29th Karika. Amatro Nantamatrascha
अमात्रोऽनन्तमात्र
Dvaitasyopasamashvah
द्वैतस्योपशमः शिवः
Omkaro vidito yena
ओङ्कार
ओङ्कारो विदितो येन
Samunir Janah.
समुनिर्
समुनिर्नितरो जनः
So this is the last karika of the first chapter, the Agama Prakaranam. And here, Gaudapada is going back to the 12th mantra, which is the definition of a matra, right? So in all the other karikas 24 to the last karika, he talked about Nididhyasanam, right? The last 24 to 28, those karikas were Nididhyasana karikas. But now it's a commentary upon the 12th mantra, the Amatra. And he says, Amatra Ananta Matrascha. This Amatra is a matra which has no limitation, right? No limitation of time and no limitation of space. So the individual sounds, what does it mean? The individual sounds, u, ma, they come and they go, right? You have to start the then the has to end. You have to start the u has to end. You have to start the ma has to end. Therefore, they are all having boundaries, time-wise boundaries. But this amatra, it is silence. It doesn't have a limitation. And that is why, people who have focused a lot upon meditation, a lot of people, especially yogis, who, so to say, they are trapped in this meditation. Why? You talk to them and they say, I meditate for 1 hour. What do you meditate upon? He said, my mind goes blank for at least part of that 1 hour. So what happens? It is samadhi. It is complete focus. There are no thoughts. There is silence, right? But what is the problem with that silence? You have to come out of it, right? So it is always relative silence, finite silence. So here, Shastra is saying that this silence of Omkara is not that silence of meditation, because that silence breaks when you come out of it. When you come out of meditation, that silence goes away. So it is finite silence. It has an ending, right? Because the moment that samadhi is over, your mind again absorbs all the sounds, and therefore the sounds displace the silence. And we as Vedantists, we are not interested in silence which comes and goes, right? Because it is finite. Anything which comes and goes is agama apayanaha. It is finite. And therefore, we are looking at the amatra, which is the silence of Vedanta. Paramatra is infinite because it is nothing but consciousness itself. It is always present. Whether you are in samadhi or whether you are buying potatoes in the market, that amatra is always present. Therefore, ananta matrascha, the absolute infinite silence, is what Dvaita Upashamaha, a very, very important word. Dvaita Upashamaha. Upashamaha means withdrawn from or free from. Dvaitam is duality. So that Ananta Matra, that infinite silence, Turyam, Brahman, is Dvaita Upashamaha, is free from Dvaitam, is free from duality, because there is really no other substance other than Chaitanya. And so it is Prapancha Upashamaha, meaning it is the very ground of resolution of the Dvaitam. Prapancha is Dvaitam, Upashama is withdrawal, and therefore that Turyam, into that Turyam, all the Dvaitam gets dissolved, It is a very substratum of the Dvaitam. Turyam Brahman is the Adhishthanam of the three Prapanchas. That is what is being said. And Shivaha means auspicious. It is always auspicious. Why? Because it is infinite silence. It is never disturbed by the sounds. Just as the waker's silence is not disturbed by the screaming in your dream. The screaming in your dream may disturb your dream silence, which cannot disturb your waker's silence. Because why? Because they are two different entities, two different realities. One is Vyavaharika Satyam, one is Pratibhasika Satyam. Pratibhasika cannot disturb the higher reality. Similarly, all the worldly noises, Vyavarika Satyam, cannot disturb the higher silence, the Paramarthika silence, which is Omkara. And therefore he says, Omkaraha Vidito Yena. That person who has understood Omkara in this manner, Sa Munihi. That person is the real Munihi, the real sage, the real wise person. Na itaro janaha. No other person can be called the Muni. Right? So remember that the status of Muni has nothing to do with the dress. You can be in a three-piece suit and be a Muni. Or you can be in a, normal household dress and you can be a Muni. You don't have to wear the saffron and call yourself Sadyasi. The real Muni is the person who has got this life, this understanding. And what is the meaning of Muni?
So you once told us Mananatati.
Mananath Muni is one, Maunath Muni is another one. The one who is eternally in silence, and that's more appropriate here. Why is he always in silence? His body may talk, but he knows that he is Turiam, which is infinite silence. So, Shankara adds a very nice commentary here. He says, Shastravit api. Even if a person is very, very learned in the Shastras, Shastravit api, he cannot be called a Munihi unless he has understood that he is Turyam Brahman. Only Munihi, the only person who is a Jnani, he is called Munihi. With this, we have finished Agama Prakaranam. Any questions? I can ask a question. Why is it called Agama Prakaranam? If you have no questions, let me ask. Why is it called Agama Prakaranam?
Is it related to auspiciousness?
Agama simply means comes.
Coming from the Lord.
Very
Veda
good.
Prakram.
Coming from the Lord, coming through the Veda, through the Guru Sishya Parampara. That is why it is Agama Prakaranam. But here I must say that there is another meaning of the word Agama which is very often used. Okay. That is not the meaning here. What is the second meaning of Agama? Agama Shastram. What does it mean?
That related to puja and worship.
It is related to how to do puja. In fact, also how to build temples. Is a basis for temple worship. It tells you what are the materials to be used, how the temple is to be constructed, a Shiva temple separately, how it's to be constructed, Vishnu temple, how it is to be constructed, how the worship is to be done. That's called Agama Shastram. That is not the meaning here. That we must remember. Okay. Now to briefly talk about, with this, the Agama Prakaranam is over. It had 29 Karikas and the 12 mantras also. And it is called Agama because it comes from the Lord. What comes from the Lord? Not the Karikas, the 12 mantras. That is why it is called Agama Prakaranam, because the Agama Prakaranam contains the entire Upanishad, which has come from the Lord. The Karikas are coming from Gaudapadaji, right? Now the second chapter contains 38 Karikas. And second, third and fourth chapter, they are all only Karikas. They are all Gaudapada Karikas. Now this chapter, the one we just finished, we saw there's a very important word in the seventh mantra, Prapancha Upashamam. Prapancha Upashamam means withdrawal from the world, right? So this whole second chapter, consisting of I think 38 karikas, it is entirely a commentary on this one word, Prapanchopashamam, which is actually Prapanchaha Upashamam, right? Then there is another very, very important word, Advaitam, which also occurs in the seventh mantra. And that is going to be the content of the entire third chapter, which consists of 48 karikas. So this we will see in the next class.
Acharya ji,
No, ji.
when I was wondering about this word, all pervasive, and so the very fact that something is pervading, doesn't it imply that there is something else which it is pervading?
No.
As well as the word witness or sakshi, because the word sakshi presumes something which it's witnessing.
What does Sakshi witness? Tell me. It's a very good question.
Sakshi here, as we understand, it's witnessing all the anatma.
No. Okay, let's come down further. How do you witness the world?
Through the jnanendriyas,
And how do you connect to the Jnanendriyas?
through the mind.
And how do you connect to the mind?
Mm.
Remember, mind is not self-revealing.
It's the consciousness in which is
Yes. So
recognized.
there are two terms which we have used in the past. One is, you can say Indriya Gocharam or Manasa Gocharam. Other is Sakshi Gocharam. Sakshi, Manasa Pratyaksham or Indriya Pratyaksham. The other one is Sakshi Pratyaksham. So the entire universe is Indriya Pratyaksham, which is basically means through the mind only, because it's the mind which connects to Indriyas. But the mind is not Indriya Pratyaksham. The mind is Sakshi Pratyaksham.
Right.
The mind, the Sakshi recognizes the mind. That is why witness, if you have to use the word witness. And ultimately, since it is because of the consciousness of the Sakshi that the whole universe is being recognized, you can ultimately say Sakshi is the only witness. Remember that Brahman cannot witness, okay? Don't use the word witness for Brahman. That is why it's like the space in the pot and the Maha-Akasha. Maha-Akasha is useless for storing water. But that Akasha which is in the pot, that Akasha is called, Gata Akasha, because it gives you the capacity to become functional. It stores water. Similarly, Brahman is not a witness, but the Sakshi being enclosed in the mind, as if enclosed in the mind, it gives it functioning of the mind is possible. That utilization power of the Sakshi, that's why it's called Sakshi. The fact that Brahman can utilize the mind to interact, that's why it's called Sakshi, while in the mind.
So it's sakshi um, while the person is alive,
Yes, Sakshi when the person is alive. You don't use the term Sakshi though that consciousness is still there. But remember that in the Sukshma Shariram, there are no transactions possible. So all transactions are only when Sthula Shariram is there, when you are alive.
Thank you.
So a very important idea to keep with us. It is not that Sakshi does anything else. Sakshi's only reason for being labeled as Sakshi is because it becomes functional. Brahman is non-functional. Okay, so with this we'll stop for today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Deva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Om.